From where MLB Network's Bob Costas calls into the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Bob?
Hey, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I will just lay it all out for you right here. The perspective on the Washington Nationals run for you would be what?
Well, when you get to October and when a team is good enough to have made the playoffs, regardless of what the odds are or the percentages are, any team has a reasonably good chance of beating any other team in a single game if it's the wild card, or a best of 5 or a best of 7. There's a kind of randomness to October, or roll of the dice aspect. And by the time the Nats got to October, not only were they playing very well, they had won 18 of 20 before they lost the 3 straight over the weekend to Houston, but they had the best record in baseball from their low point on. From the point that they got to 19-31 in late May, they had the best record in baseball. So this was a different team that began the series against the Astros than the team that you look at for overall record. If you look at the difference between the Astros record and theirs, clearly the Astros were the better team over the course of the season. And in fairness to Houston, they have been baseball's best team, even given the great year that the Red Sox had in winning the World Series last year. They have been baseball's best team overall over the last 3 years. But when you get into October, the best team doesn't always win every series. You've got to run that 3-level gauntlet through the division series, the LCS, and then the World Series. And they get to the 7th game, and they've got a 2-0 lead late in the game, and then it slips away. And the Nats showed an ability not only to come back from that 19-31 low point, but when they got into the postseason, they faced 5 elimination games and trailed at some point in all of them and came back to win all those games. Had they lost the wild card game to the Brewers, which they very nearly did, the narrative would have been another typical Nats season, good enough to make the postseason, quick exit. Even if they lost the division series, though the Dodgers would have been favored and the 5th game was in L.A., even if they lost that, same narrative. Can't get past the division series. That's how close they came to having that narrative hung around their neck, and now they're hoisting the championship trophy.
Well, let's zero in granular level to Game 7, as you pointed out, that the Astros were up 2-0. Greinke was sitting in a rocking chair. I mean, he was having the start of his life, and now he's 8 outs away. He gives up a home run to Rendon and then a walk subsequent to that, and out comes A.J. Hinch. And I know that this is the way the world goes in baseball these days, despite having 80 pitches, despite how dominant you have been. Just a couple of batters is all it takes for a hook to bring in somebody who can throw 90, 100 miles an hour. Do you think that was the proper maneuver last night, Bob?
In hindsight, you can't say that it was, and Greinke had only thrown 80 pitches. He made the one mistake. He left one out over the plate to Rendon, and Rendon launched it. And were it not for Strasburg, Rendon would certainly have been the most valuable player. Had an incredible World Series for the Nats. So now it's 2-1, and you're going to pitch carefully to Soto. So walking him doesn't necessarily mean that you're losing it. But what enters into A.J. Hinch's thinking is that Will Harris has been just great for the Astros through the regular season and into the postseason. If there was any sign of weakness, it was that he was used heavily, and he had given up a home run to Rendon in Game 6. But that wasn't reason enough in Hinch's mind to go away from him. And a lot of people watching the game, including ball players and longtime observers, said, where's Garrett Cole? And A.J. Hinch's thought was, Cole has never pitched out of the bullpen in his entire professional career. So if he was going to use him, he was going to use him at the start of an inning, a clean inning, rather than bring him in cold or with someone on base. So he goes to Will Harris, and the ball that Howie Kendrick hit sliced down the right field line, plunks over the foul pole, onto the foul pole, just over 320 feet. You know, it's a home run for sure. Does it mean that Harris was tattooed? Not necessarily. But there goes the lead. In just a few pitches, Greinke's cruising up 2-0, and in the blink of an eye, they're down 3-2. Now, where you could question Hinch after that is, okay, to try and keep it close. You've got the guy who's been the best pitcher on the planet over the course of this season. To keep it close, even though you're down 3-2, why not bring in Cole in the 8th? I think that's the larger question for Hinch, who, no matter what happened in Game 7, is still one of baseball's best managers.
And he is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the guy's an amazing button pusher, not just strategically during a game, but also just in clubhouses and what to do and how to handle situations, from hurricanes to you name it. The guy has just been terrific. I guess it's just maybe lamenting the way that the game is managed overall and generally, that somebody who's cruising, a Cy Young Award winner like Greinke, 80 pitches in, it's like home run and a walk that, as you point out, was maybe strategic in its own right. Also, I might add, aided by what looked like a ball three that was a strike in the box on the screen that I'm sure umpires hate so much. It just, I guess I'm lamenting that Greinke can't be left in the game to work it out himself, Bob.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. And as you said, the walk to Soto was not a case of wildness. You're working carefully. Greinke had command the whole time. He's working the corners. Maybe he gets that call and it changes that at bat. The other part of the thinking is the dreaded third time through the lineup. So he was hitting that third time through the lineup. But to your point, he'd only thrown 80 pitches, and all but one of them had been pretty much what he intended, just the one he left out over the plate to Rendon. In hindsight, there's no denying that he should have been left in. Over the course of a season and all the thought that goes into it, you can defend what Hinch did.
Bob Costas here on the Rich Eisen Show. I would run through all of his career credits, but he has a plane to catch, so I have a few minutes left with Bob here on the Rich Eisen Show. How does Strasburg's postseason rank for you based on those that you have personally eyeballed over the years, Bob?
Oh, it was tremendous. 5-0 in the postseason, microscopic ERA, rising to important occasions. He had to keep them alive in Game 6, and not only did he do that, but he saved their bullpen. He went deep into the game, worked into the ninth inning. Pardon me. There were a lot of performances in this postseason. Just going back to what we were talking about a moment ago, a lot of performances by starting pitchers in this postseason that made you think maybe this whole idea, give me just 5, maybe 6 innings, and then a parade of relievers, isn't always the answer if you've got the horses in your rotation. So Strasburg was a good choice for MVP. As I said, Rendon might have been had Strasburg not been as dominant as he was.
And in terms of batters that were clutch, I know you're not on Twitter, Bob, but I did see this accurate fact last night on that site, that in Anthony...
An upset in and of itself, perhaps as large as the match upset. An accurate, intelligent thought found on Twitter. Proceed. Yes, I'm very interested.
It is a major upset, yes. Anthony Rendon's plate appearances in the 7th inning or later of the Nationals' 5 elimination games this season are as follows: walk, double, home run, double, and then last night's home run. This guy was a revelation, certainly in light of the offseason departure of Bryce Harper. And the question is Rendon's future. What do you think happens here, Bob?
Well, you look at the 3 major names, they're not the only names, but the 3 major names on these teams that are either free agents or, in Strasburg's case, can opt out, and they all increased their value this October. Rendon, Strasburg, and Cole throughout the season and then into October. So they're all in an even better position than they were a month ago. To your point, though, when they let Bryce Harper go, and I've said this before, and it's not a knock on Bryce Harper. The Phillies got their money's worth in terms of attendance and merchandise sales, and he's a very, very good player. But his marquee value, his star presence, is greater than his performance, except for his MVP year. So when Mike Rizzo and the Nats looked at it, they said to themselves, if we invest all the money that it will take to keep Bryce Harper, then how do we keep Rendon? And how do we eventually pay Soto and Robles? And how do we keep Strasburg if he wants to stay here? All those considerations went into letting Bryce Harper go. Mike Rizzo told me a few days ago that they will make every effort to keep both Strasburg, which I think is a pretty good chance that they will. All they have to do is sweeten the deal he already has. It's not going to be that large an investment, and he's a creature of habit, and he probably will want to stay. It'll be tougher to keep Rendon, but Rendon told me that he's certainly open to whatever the Nats have to say. It's the only professional organization he's ever been with. It's been a good relationship, so it's very possible that they could keep them both. And if they do, letting Bryce Harper go plays into that. As far as Cole, if you heard his post-game comments, they had a tone to them that almost made you believe he was already on his way out. He was kind of speaking in the past tense. This has been a wonderful relationship. I learned a lot about the game from Verlander and from Brent Strom and from A.J. Hinch. It almost had a past tense feeling to it. So of those three, if I had to guess, the guy who's most likely to wear a different uniform next year is Garrett Cole.
Well, in terms of wearing something different, Garrett Cole was wearing a Scott Boras logoed hat when he was delivering those comments last night, Bob. So I think that might give you an indication of where he's thinking.
Right. The major player in this offseason for him is not him or Jeff Lunau. It's Scott Boras.
Yeah, right. I mean, and by the way, just checking, that was not a $sign logo. I don't believe it was an actual Boras logoed sign, even though a $sign might be synonymous with that. So if I gave you a sit down with Rob Manfred, and maybe you do have that sort of sit down coming over the next weeks or months. And he says to you, Bob, well, what do you think if I could wave a wand and make one rule change, or I can go into what various competition committees or ownership groups and pound the table on behalf of the commissioner's office looking after baseball, and I can make this table pound? What would you suggest he do that for?
Well, we know what the biggest issue is, and rather than pinpoint a particular remedy, I think the overriding issue is that what baseball people in the modern era, with justification, with analytics and all the data they have, what they believe is best for giving you a competitive edge and a chance to win is not really what's best for entertainment. Pace of play is the biggest issue. And if you're going to have a parade of relievers, and if you're going to have teams that, to their credit, go deep into counts because they're battling on every pitch, you're getting credit for good takes, not just the balls you put in play. And if launch angle is the big new thing and strikeouts don't matter, you're going to have more strikeouts or more deep counts with swings and misses. You're going to have fewer balls in play. Velocity is in play. You're not going to tell somebody you can't throw 98 miles an hour, but there aren't as many Greg Maddux or Kyle Hendricks types anymore who pitch to contact, so you get the at-bat over in fewer pitches. I don't know how you impose upon teams and the people who run teams, impose upon them, hey, look, don't use an approach that seems to work for winning because it makes the game less entertaining or less accessible to fans who have shorter attention spans. That's a real conundrum for baseball.
Bob, really appreciate the time. And another great season. I guess last one for you as I send you out the door. What was the moment of the season for you? Whether you called it, at the microphone, or you witnessed it, or you sat at home watching baseball. What do you think was the moment of the season 2019?
Well, I think if you're talking about just a moment, the Nats winning the championship is the overriding story. But
Sure.
if you're talking about a single moment, it sent them to the World Series where they fell short. But I would say it was Altuve's homer off Chapman to win Game 6 of the LCS and win the pennant for the Astros and send the Yankees home. And in that one moment, you think of Altuve, great call by Joe Buck, which is the way most of the nation received it. You think about that scene, and then you picture Chapman standing on the mound with a kind of stunned smile on his face.
Right.
What just happened? If you're looking for a moment, I think that's the one moment.
Yeah, because it was just man, because it looked like we were going to have a Game 7 all of a sudden with another big comeback by the road team right there. Man, the road teams were just – I've never seen anything like it, Bob. And I don't know if it has anything to do with, the leveling of play, or that everybody could throw 100 miles an hour, or it's just happenstance. I don't know, but it was unbelievable.
Well, Rich, you know this stat. The last several World Series, including the last several Game 7s, have all ended with the road team winning. And coming into this game last night, the researchers at MLB Network came up with this, and maybe you've heard it by now, but counting the NBA and the NHL with baseball, those are the leagues that play best of sevens. There have been more than 1,400 best of 7 series. They didn't all go 7 games, obviously, but more than 1,400 best of 7 series played in those 3 sports. And prior to last night, there had never been a series where the road team won the first 6 games, let alone all 7 games.
Yeah, I know. It's unreal. And I looked it up because I was wondering, the 2013 Red Sox, as I mentioned at the top of the show here, were the last team to celebrate in front of their home fans to clinch a World Series. Everybody else has done it on the road. And as a matter of fact, I thought that was so germane and also unique. I tweeted it out, Bob. I put it on my Twitter feed last night.
There you go. Another worthwhile bit of information on Twitter. You're beginning to change my mind, slowly but surely.
I'm chipping
Maybe
away.
What I should do is, why don't you just curate it for me? And whatever Rich Eisen thinks is okay, then he forwards it to Bob Costas, and I have a better view of things.
Bob, I will. I'm on it. Thanks again for the call. You're the best, and we'll chat soon.
Bye, Rich. Take care.
You got it. It's Bob Costas right here, or at Bob Costas. Does somebody have that? Let's look that up right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download The Rich Eisen Show app.